Alright, if there are 12 players on a basketball team, only 5 players are allowed on the court at once, and the game is 32 minutes long. How many minutes will each player play if the coach wants to play everybody equally? This is one of those questions, probably a good idea to draw a picture for because there's a lot of things going on at once here. We've got 3 numbers, and we're going to decide what to do kind of with those numbers. So I've got my picture here, and lucky for me, I've got the internet, so it's easy to draw a picture, but you could probably draw this on pencil and paper too if you needed to. So let's just say, for instance, that only one player was allowed on the court. And you can see here I've labeled everybody by a uniform number. And so we're saying number one's in the court, and he's the only one allowed on. So if we have 32 minutes, and we've got to divide it up equally among 12 players, this is what we would do. And we would say, 12 goes into 32 a couple of times, and the steps for division. 2 times 12 is 24. We're going to subtract. 32 minus 24 is 8. In this case, since we've got a remainder, we could add a decimal point. And if we do that, we add a decimal point up in our quotient. And we can always annex a 0 here to the right of the decimal point. And we bring that down. We say that 12 goes into 80. I believe 12 goes into 80 6 times. 6 times 12 is 72. So we could write that right here. And if you didn't know that, you could always do it off to the side. And then we have 72 here, and 80 minus 72 is 8, and it looks like it's going to be one of those that just keeps on repeating. And so this is what it would be like if there was only one player allowed on the court at a time. Of course, the problem tells us that 5 are allowed on the court at a time. So if that's the case, then the coach probably has more than this to work with. So you can think of it like this. The coach doesn't have just 32 minutes to work with. If you have 5 players, that means you've got 32 minutes times 5 players. And so that means in all, we're going to have 160 minutes for these players. 2 times 5 is 10. And then we carry the 1. 3 times 5 is 15. We add that 1. We get 160 minutes for those 5 players. So with that 160 minutes, of course, we've got to divide that up now among all 12 of these players. So that's where the division kicks in. And I'm going to go on to a new page just so that I have enough room to do this. So we have 160 divided by 12. So we say, how many times does 12 go into 16? It goes in 1 time. We do 1 times 12 is 12. 60 minus 12 is 4. We bring down a 0. That's 40. And 12 goes into 40 3 times. Again, I know my 12 tables. I know a lot of you guys know your 12 tables. I think it's a good idea to know up to your 12s. 40 minus 36 is 4. And then we're going to, again, have a decimal point here. So we'll put a decimal point up here in our quotient. And going to add a 0. When we add a 0 here, it doesn't change the value of 160. It's like saying, and this is just an aside, if I have $160, that's the same value as having $160 and 0 cents, right? It's like the change doesn't exist. So these numbers are really the same. Okay, we can add as many zeros as we want. So we're going to bring down a 0. And we get 40. And again, it goes in 3 times. And you're going to notice a pattern in a second. Because again, 12 times 3 is 36. And so you'll notice that this is just going to keep repeating. When this happens, what you can do is just put a little bar. Sorry, this is a bad 4. You can just put a little bar up above this 3 here. And that lets you know that that's going to go on and on forever and ever. We call that the repetant bar. So it's 13.3. And if you also notice, there's a remainder of 4 each time. And the divisor is 12. So another way of writing 13.3 repeating is just to write 13 and 4/12. So you put your remainder over your divisor. And that can be simplified, actually, into 13 and 1/3. Because 4 goes into both 4 and 12. And so it's really 13 and 1/3 minutes. And 1/3 of a minute in seconds is just 1/3 of 60. So 1/3 times 60 seconds. And we can really put this over 1 because if you divide something by 1, it doesn't really change the value of it. So if we just say 1/3 60, we put that over 1. We'll be left with 1 times 60 is 60, and 3 times 1 is 3. So we'll have 60 over 3, and that's just a division problem. 60 divided by 3 is 20. So we're going to have 13 minutes and 20 seconds. Hopefully that's kind of makes sense, this last part. If you didn't understand this, that's okay. That's probably a little bit above our level right now. But in terms of the multiplying and the dividing that took place here, hopefully you understand that. You understand why I put the decimals there.